Synchronicity University is where the most trusted and celebrated names in astrology today come to teach. These programs coming up in November are choose your tuition rate for a very limited time at synchronicityuniversity.com. Links are in the description below. Hello, fabulous superstar Leo. Welcome to your horoscope for the month of October 2023. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological month, without a doubt. Big moves happening in the sky now. Boy, is this a very special time. This is quite big, I'll tell you. We have eclipse season underway very soon, the second half of the month, but it's the lead up to it that also holds these very powerful fated events. That's the thing with eclipses. Eclipses intimately involve the nodes, and the nodes of the moon, as I spoke of in my book, The Universe is Wise and Loving, they represent karmic doorways. And when it is the south node that is activated or involved in important celestial phenomenon, it is fortunate closures. When it's the north node, it is a doorway opening that brings with it new people, places, things, situations that represent blessings. Both pathways represent blessings. They just do it in slightly different ways. Well, this month with eclipse season, it is truly the south node that is most powerfully activated now. And this represents important moments of how blessed we are by certain closures taking place that then allow us to do so much more of what it is that we are called to do, are meant to do in this lifetime. For you, the eclipses reach particularly important points. The area of the sky most lit up this month has to do with communication, conversation, learning, but also it's your mind, like changing your mind, seeing things differently. Siblings, cousins, neighbors are covered here as well. So there's a few celestial phenomenons I'll talk about here. But what we also have is a very powerful lunar eclipse taking place at the top of your sky, having to do with destiny and legacy. And then we've got Pluto moving through a daily part of your sky. And so you can see here, it's like your life in real ways gets more honest. It changes, aligning you with a whole other, more expansive destiny than you knew before. But it is also now that a lot of those changes are rooted in how you see things differently, how you're led to think of things differently. And messages coming in may very well be facilitated by these key people I just mentioned, those siblings, cousins, and neighbors. So let's talk about the varying celestial phenomenon. As I said, the area most lit up this month. Mind, communication, siblings, cousins, neighbors. Well, it starts on the 4th of the month when the south node meets Mars here. When a big planet like Mars reaches the south node, well, this happens about once every year and a half. And when it takes place, it's usually in a different sign and a different part of your sky. This time around, it is that communicative part of your sky. And Mars on the south node is that doorway opening from which people, places, things, situations exit. With Mars, those exits feel passionate. They feel sometimes intense, very much on the surface. And there could be a whole bunch of very strong emotions playing out here, including passion, as I said, agency, focus, but anger as well can be part of this. And anger can be a very important source of energy where it comes to making change. Anger can help us to identify what we don't want. Now, whether this energy shows up in terms of passion or intensity or focus, or whether it is a situation that feels like it stirs anger, the wonderful thing is that doorway opening will allow those exits to occur, and that can be very powerful. Those exits ultimately allow that much more possibility for blessings to come in. The endings themselves may be blessings. So siblings, cousins may have big changes happening in their life now where challenging situations in their life ends. It could be that they are making choices that don't necessarily feel good to you. Maybe they push some buttons in you, but that helps you to understand how those connections are evolving, maybe for the better. And it is, of course, neighbors that could exit the picture now as well. But it's also a chance for you to finally get that document, that letter, that news that helps you to bring certain chapters to a close that might have been lingering for a while. It is on the 10th of the month that we get Pluto going direct, Pluto in that daily part of your sky. And that part of the sky has to do with your work life. It has to do with how well you take care of you, including your health as well. Now, Pluto finally going direct after over 5 months retrograde either can bring with it a moment of honesty, a moment of transformation, a moment of change, a moment of truth. But ultimately, because Pluto's going forward, it can feel like something in you finally moves forward as well. Whether it comes to understanding what you can do to take the best of care of you, maybe a determination to change certain habits that you know will be good for you. But this can also be a sense of depth of perception into what is happening with a client, a customer, or coworker, realizing whom it is that feels like those alliances are healthy, but also where it is that they might not be. And if it is that there have been any kind of power games or struggles with one of these types of people I just mentioned, those clients, customers, coworkers, well, this is where some of that could stir, but it's ultimately to get you honest about whether or not this is the right environment for you, whether or not you actually want to be here. Now, it is the 14th of October where a lot of all these themes I've talked about so far really start coming together with the solar eclipse. Again, this is in that mind synchronistic sibling, cousin, neighbor part of the sky that is lit up with this solar eclipse. The south node, of course, being here. It does speak to how, with the south node inherently holding endings, but solar eclipse bringing with them beginnings seemingly out of nowhere, they really do go hand in hand at this time. The eclipse is close in the sky to Mercury and to Mars as well. In fact, as we navigate further in the days ahead, we get the Sun and Mercury meeting the South Node, and we get all three connecting in conversations of tension with Pluto. You see how it all comes together here with Pluto in the part of the sky that has to do with how you're actually living, what your life is showing you. But it is also how you're thinking about it that changes your experience as you move through your life as well. It is key conversations shared now that change the reality of how you actually live. And so this can be powerful and profound at this time. Ultimately, this does show us and point the way to an understanding as to the determination that you might find to change your mind, or as a result of changing your mind, to live differently in some way. Do be careful though, because with that Pluto square being such a dominant energy, especially the first 3 weeks of this month, it does suggest feelings of unfairness playing out, either with siblings, cousins, neighbors. But also, I want to add here, strive to check in with yourself about how you're perceiving things, how you're looking at things, and how grounded it actually is. Choose your responses, because sometimes what's shared with you rather spontaneously can provoke you, can push your buttons in some way. And so rather than you just responding to whatever stimuli is being thrown at you, it's a good idea to have that moment of pause to decide what it is that you're feeling, what you're learning from it, but then also, most importantly, to decide what your response is going to be. That's how wisdom is, in very practical ways, cultivated at this time. Now, on the 28th, we get a lunar eclipse. It's a partial lunar eclipse, the last of a series that has been taking place at the top of your sky. You're not going to see an eclipse here again until we navigate to the turn of the decade. So you've got a bit of a breather now. And having eclipses at the top of your sky can dramatically change your connection to and your relationship to bosses and people in positions of authority. But it can also change your understanding of your career and life purpose and your understanding of what's worth going for in a higher sense, what a higher, more loving vision for your life might be. All of that is in some way illuminated for you, but it comes with a lot of emotion. Here's the thing. Remember how I've been talking about fortunate closures? The inherentness of a lunar eclipse is closure. As a result of emotional honesty, very often, that honesty seeming to come out of nowhere. Sometimes there are events that we didn't expect that come hand in hand with this. However, Jupiter is close in the sky with this eclipse. And we've got Mars and Mercury opposite the eclipse as well. And all of that does suggest that, yeah, there's a lot of energy here, but there's also a magnification of blessings. There can be closures taking place. Maybe you achieve something that you set out to, or you realize that the path you've been on, what you've been trying to achieve, it just doesn't mean what it used to you anymore. It could be at this time that there's some sense of recognition, but it brings with it complex, deep-seated feelings as well. Might be at this time that you realize that there's something else calling you that feels very exciting in terms of your career. Maybe you just understand your purpose very differently than before. Regardless, though, where it is that what you've already done, the past and foundations that you've put into place, and where it is now you desire to go, if it feels like those two are very different, this eclipse will help you to find that right balance so that you can align with a path that feels that much more in alignment with a sense of legacy and destiny that you are co-creating with the universe now. Now, where it comes to matters of love, look, of course, we've got lots going on here, but I have to say, especially for the Leos out there, the really big news is that Venus retrograde season comes to an end, right? The 9th of October, that is when Venus leaves shadow and shortly after leaves your sign. This is huge. Now, on the way out, though, we get a few key things happening, right? So on the one hand, just before this month begins, we get Venus square Uranus, a key moment as part of the larger Venus retrograde season. Then we start a new month, and as we're wrapping up the shadow, wrapping up the larger season, we get those quick moving alliances for a third and final time between Venus and Neptune and Pluto as well. As I mentioned, Pluto is at the height of its power, so we're really going to feel that energy that much more. With Venus in your sign, this has been an incredibly important time frame in the context of love, but now you get to see it differently. And by see it, yes, part of that is all that energy in that part of the sky that is about communication and perception and understanding. That's one thing. But it's also about, for you with Venus, heart. That's what this whole Venus retrograde season has meant to be for you. With that connection to Pluto, your truth is profound. It is deep. It is felt. Where there have been disappointments, you're looking at them, you're acknowledging them in some way. And these energies together can be incredibly meaningful. They come together for you now as you get honest with you. Where is your heart? Where have you been holding on? Where had you had some hope? Where is it that you've been disappointed? Where is it that you participated in that? Where is it that perhaps things haven't been as ideal because of your choices? Maybe you've been focused on someone else, but it's you. But maybe you've been focused too much on you and it's not you. Your answers are going to be uniquely your own, but I do think there are some difficult truths here that are set to come together for the Leos out there. And they're difficult because they ask you important questions. And because they ask you those questions, the answers are worth the journey that you had to take to get here. And so it's truth time for you, looking at where you've been and where you are as part of understanding where you want to go next. For those of you open to meeting someone new, of course, Venus is still in your sign. You are certainly a magnet. I do think there's a little bit of a stirring within you happening as you begin the month. And you're probably considering and thinking about certain ideas or things that were said to you. You're contemplating their deeper meaning. But I think there's this journey in the first 9 days of this month that is positively healing, where you're acknowledging where it is that maybe in the past you got caught up in fantasies, where the realities might have let you down, where it is that you're different now, where it is that love means something else to you today than it did before. And as you're coming to these truths, perhaps very quickly, you're able to understand how now you love differently as well. From there, you get to decide the best way forward. But yeah, chances are you're going to attract experiences that help you to become aware of these very deep lessons and patterns that have been ongoing, especially over the course of the last few months, as those lessons come together for you in the first days of this month now. For those of you just starting to date someone, there's a sense of needing to reconcile the truth and who this person is, and maybe what your hopes were, your fantasy was. For some, this is going to be facing your own resistance, looking at that very quickly, but then also the opportunity through your own honesty to transcend that resistance, to reach a new level of trust with this person. However, it might also be at this time that very quickly, as you're entering this month, you realize that this really is not the person for you. If that's your answer, it'll be very undeniable. It may not be a comfortable truth, but from there, you get to decide the next best choice for you. And for those of you in an established bond, well, that sense of looking at the self, looking at your loyalties and where it is that the relationship is strong, well, that element and energy of surprise may just end up being an amusing story in some way. And some of that energy of looking at disappointment just might end up being like plans changing, and it's really not a big deal. But there are going to be some Leos out there who are facing more profound questions at this time. And the truth of you and this other person, your participation, where things you have felt are fair, where they haven't been fair, I think a lot of that is going to stir what you hoped for, what you expected, the reality. All of that mixed emotion is likely to come to the surface in the first part of this month. But there's something very powerful about understanding, about talking things out, whether it's with this person that you're in partnership with or with someone else. Ultimately, it's through talking things through that you get to understand the best choices for you navigating forward from here. What I love about this month for you, there's so much here. It's a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. Well, this month is really big. It is eclipse season, but in many ways, eclipse season is extended. The whole month may end up feeling unexpected and karmic and intense, like eclipse season tends to feel. This is a special time though, because intensity means that you're feeling. And sometimes living means being engaged with life on that level of emotion and sentimentality. It is this time now that's going to stir you very deeply, but it means that you are on an accelerated course towards meaningful change, mind and heart, in a way that likely will stay with you for a very, very long time to come. Well, thank you so much for watching. Do you know about Superstar? NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, where you get expanded, exclusive video scopes each week for each sign for as low as just $3 a month with choose your membership rate. Higher tiers are also available, which give you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Links are in the description below.